Am I the a-hole for telling my mom she only has one kid? My parents divorced when my sister, 20F, and I, 19M, were 5 and 6 years old. She met her husband 3 years later. He was a widower with a 7-month-old son. I think he was 7 months old when they met. She instantly moved them in and started claiming his son as her own and raising him like us. She got engaged to him, and a few weeks before the wedding our dad died. By this point my mom had just become estranged from her entire extended family. She told my dad's parents that if they wanted to see us again soon, they would need to come to her wedding and watch all 3 of us, including my stepbrother. She then told them after the wedding that going forward, if they wanted to see us, or spend time with us, they had to include him. They hadn't wanted to. They tried to argue for time with just us, offering to pay for it all 100%. But mom said no. She said they needed to come to the house and make an effort with all 3 and not just take 2 with them. My sister and I would argue with mom over one day in particular. My dad's birthday. We celebrated that every year with dad's family after he died, but she wouldn't even let that day be just us and them. Our stepbrother had to be there. She said they did not get to be just our family and we shouldn't see him as any less deserving of being present. But we did. He was not our dad's kid, and had never met him. So why was he deserving of being there? I never got that. She called us selfish for the mindset. Last year I turned 18 and I moved in with my girlfriend. Once I left home, my stepbrother was no longer invited to anything to do with my dad's family. He no longer saw them. My sister and I also stopped spending any time at mom's house. Then we stopped speaking to them at all. It was quiet for several months, and then last week mom showed up where I work and demanded we talk. She told me how she was tired of one of her kids being left out and how sick was it to discard him that way, and why weren't my sister and I advocating for him. I told her she only had one kid, her stepson, and that my sister and I were no longer her kids and my family were no longer forced to include him to see us, and that it was all her fault for forcing it in the first place. Then I wished her luck, which was kinda sarcastic, not gonna lie, and then asked her to leave. She texted me later that night to say she had been a good mom to all 3 of us and to say she only had one kid was low. Am I the a-hole? The top comment is not the a-hole. Ultimately your mom threatening to keep you and your sister away from your dad's family unless they include stepbro is manipulative. Mom needs to learn that life isn't fair and she can't always get what she wants /__/. Am I the a-hole for having my daughter's first birthday the same day as my stepsister's wedding? My mom got remarried after my parents' divorce and her new husband brought along my stepsister. I lived with my dad mostly because I did not want anything to do with a new sibling and had pretty much no relationship with her and hated that my mom treated her like a daughter. I wasn't the nicest to her, but I felt like she was taking my place. Fast forward to now, she is getting married. I wasn't invited since we have no relationship whatever. I didn't invite her to mine either. This issue is I planned my daughter's first birthday and when I told my mom she said it can't be that day because it's my stepsister's wedding and can we change it to the next weekend so people don't have to choose which to go to. I said no, my stepsister's wedding is at 8 p.m. my daughter's party is at 1 p.m. people can do both, but almost everyone on my mom's side's asked no to her birthday party because of the wedding and travel. Even my own mother said she can't make it because she will be at stepsister's wedding and getting ready all day. I'm pissed. How can she choose a stepdaughter over her own grandchild? Everyone is picking this girl who isn't even really family over my daughter. My mom says to just change the party, but I think it's ridiculous. They can't do both and won't change my schedule for my stepsister. And my daughter will be the one I suffer when one of her family is at her first birthday party. The top comment is yes, you are the a-hole. You know, we know it, everyone knows it. People aren't simply going to do both events. Very few people are going to want to come to a 1-year-old's birthday party then go to an adult wedding. You knew about the conflict and went ahead with it anyway, despite the fact that moving it would not affect your child in any way. You're trying to play the victim here when this is all under your control. Please seek therapy. Am I the a-hole for telling a waiter I want to change tables because there is a crying baby next to me? My husband and I went out for dinner a couple of nights ago. It was the first time by ourselves after our baby was born. It's my second child, the first for my husband, so it was kind of a big deal for us. We got a babysitter and we went to a very nice fancy restaurant. A few minutes after we ordered, another couple sat on the table next to us, with a small baby in a stroller. At first it was fine, but after a few minutes the baby started crying. They tried to comfort it, but every time it seemed they had managed to make it sleep, it woke up crying again. By then we just wanted to leave, but we had already ordered, so we decided to ask the waiter if we could change tables to the other side of the restaurant. The waiter asked if there was a problem and I said it was our first time out after having a baby and we didn't feel like spending our evening next to someone else's crying baby. He was super nice and quickly asked another waiter to help him set up the new table for us. Another couple that was in the same area also asked to be seated elsewhere. The couple with the baby overheard what we said to the waiter, and especially the mom got upset and called me an a-hole. She went on and on saying that I probably don't have kids. I have two, and that babies are also people and we should just accept that babies can be loud and cry and there's nothing she could do about it. I didn't want to start a fight or anything, but I got really annoyed by her attitude, so I told her that she could actually do something about the crying. She could take her baby home so it can properly sleep and then let everyone else there enjoy their meals. She kept saying stuff, but I just ignored her, went to our new table and tried to have a nice dinner, although we could still hear the crying baby, but at least it was not right next to us. This morning I told my sister what happened and she said she agrees that I might have been in a hole. She said I shouldn't have said to the waiter that we wanted to move because of the baby, and I shouldn't have said what I said to the mom. So now I am not sure. Am I the a-hole? The top comment is, not the a-hole. You have kids and got a babysitter. In what universe do you want to go to a fancy restaurant anytime and listen to somebody else's crying baby? No way. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I didn't like her food? Little bit of info, I am a very honest person, which means I can often be harsh with honesty. I live in Denmark, so English is not my first language, sorry for any mistakes. So yesterday my mom cooked a noodle meal that I didn't like. She knows I don't like this particular type of meal, as I always tell her, but she told me that this one was different and that I would like it. Well, I ate it, and when she asked I said better than nothing, but not amazing. After dinner I got some for lunch the next day too. I always get leftovers for lunch, and after eating, she said not so bad now. I answered better than nothing. She then asked if I liked it, and I simply answered no. She said something about me being rude and walked away, then was just quiet for a while, unusual since she usually talks a lot, but I've been feeling kinda guilty since then. She usually makes really great food, but once in a while she makes it the way she likes it, while knowing I don't like it, and I think that is fair, as long as it's not too often, which it isn't. But my logic has always been, if you don't want a truthful answer, don't ask me. So, am I the a-hole? / edit to clarify / I don't mean that only sometimes she cook food that she likes, I mean that sometimes she cooks food that only she likes, usually she cooks food we all like, including her. I'm 16. I always thank her for the food, and I did too this time. When I say direct answer I mean no, better than nothing was an implication. I'm not good at cooking and prefer her food. And lastly, I didn't just take the leftovers, she asked me to take it. The top comment is, yes, you are the a-hole. Anyone who says they are very honest and harsh with honesty, aka someone who is brutally honest, is always an a-hole. Am I the a-hole for not inviting my parents to the reception unless they accept to sit in the front row as my parents? This has been a sh* though in my head, and I need help to determine if I, 31M, royally screwed up or did I do what I had to do. My mom and dad both are severely antisocial. It is in a level that they haven't left our neighborhood for 12 years since I left for medical school to another city. In my childhood I wasn't also allowed to call any friend of mine to my house, or they never came to any parent-child conferences, my school stuff, or even family events because it was too much people. They would email with my teachers or have phone calls. This would be in emergencies, mostly they emailed them. Luckily both of my grandparents and my uncles and aunts from both sides cared for me immensely, even though all of them had their own kids or their own life, etc. In my medical school graduation all of them were there, and at my graduation from residency, they organized a festival in our neighborhood. They were 400-ish people, not kidding. There weren't them, I wouldn't have had a normal childhood. My parents are also both working from home as data analysts since early 2000s, so they 95% don't leave their houses. I am also engaged to my fiancé, 35M, for 6 months, and we are together for 9 years. To be fair, my parents tried to have a relationship with him, but it was too much for them. Seriously, they said that. And they said you are happy, so we are happy too, just send us an invitation to your wedding if things go forward. Even though all of this, I love my parents and I want them to have their place as my parents in my wedding, and I just want them to be present in one of my life events, so I asked them to participate in planning. They said no. I said maybe a wedding speech? They said they wouldn't. Then I asked sit in the front row at least? They said we don't like to be the attention. I finally exploded and said they weren't in my significant moments, they never participated in any of my life events, and they even didn't try getting to know my fiancé. I said just stay at your heaven, they call their house their heaven, and don't bother me anymore. Good night, and I left their house. 2 days later I sent the wedding list to our organizer and my parents weren't in the list. Our organizer is also my cousine's boyfriend, so when he saw the list he called her and she texted all of my family and ILs. My ILs and my grandparents think they got what they deserved, but all F my parents' siblings and their kids think I should abide to them and invite them as normal guests. So, am I the a-hole? Note, no one will refuse to show up because of this or a big drama will happen. This is just something disturbs me, no one else. The top comment is, you need to get a new organizer. Highly unprofessional conduct, not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for raging at my fiancé for using my daughter's wheelchair to move bags of grass cuttings? I, F30, have a daughter, Hazel, F8. Hazel was born with a rare condition called tethered cord syndrome and she uses a manual wheelchair to get around. Hazel's father hasn't been in the picture since she was a toddler and I now have a fiancé, Mark, M34. Mark and I have been together for a total of 3 years. He has a son, Eddie, M14. We all live together in a house that I own in my name, which I know is a very fortunate position to be in with the housing market. I inherited the house from my late dad. We have quite a large yard and the other day, Mark and Eddie were doing some yard work quite early in the morning. Hazel was still sleeping and I went outside to see what they were up to. That's when I noticed that Eddie was using Hazel's wheelchair to move bags of grass cuttings and dead plants. I immediately stopped him and asked him what on earth was he doing with her wheelchair. Eddie sheepishly told me that Mark told him to use it and that it would be fine. After taking the things off my daughter's wheelchair, I asked Mark if this was true. Mark admitted that he took the wheelchair to use it to move stuff. He said that Hazel was still sleeping and that they weren't going to use it for long, so he didn't think it would matter or that she would even notice. I started raging at Mark and yelling at him and saying that what he did was disrespectful to my daughter and that he has no right to go and take her things, let alone something that she needs to move around, and told him he's acting like a total douchebag. Mark apologized, but I was still royally pissed off and went back inside the house and didn't say anything to him. Later that day he said that I was wrong for my reaction and that I was majorly out of line, especially for acting that way in front of his son. I don't think I was out of line, but Mark is expecting an apology. The top comment is, not the a-hole. What if she woke up and needed to go somewhere, like the bathroom in an emergency? Also, what if bugs, ticks, spiders, or dangerous germs got onto the wheelchair? Am I the a-hole for not letting my daughter have locks for her room? My 43F daughter Laura, 17F, has been struggling to focus on her studies with her brothers Kyle, 12M, and Ryan, 9M, constantly disrespecting her privacy. A few days ago, she was yelling for Kyle to come to her room. I asked her what happened. She explained that Kyle flipped all her items upside down. I called Kyle to come and flip everything right side up. Yesterday, Ryan was running into her room and kept stealing her stuff, while she ran to get them back. On the night of the same day, Laura was trying to sleep, when the brothers suddenly barged in and ran through it, resulting in her screaming at them to stay out and close the door while she was sleeping, to give a few examples. Today in the morning, her father, 48M, told her he didn't like the way she was screaming. She said that she was trying to sleep and her brothers were making all kinds of ruckus. He told her that they are kids and they will learn. She said that they will never learn and the only way for them to learn is to have locks installed for her room. He did not want her to and they went back and forth on this until she threatened she would move out as soon as she became financially independent, since she wasn't going to wait for them to mature and they should already know to respect her privacy, to which he said to wait to include me in the conversation. I overheard, and when she went to her room, I told her she wasn't going to have locks set up because she already wastes her time without the need for locks and I don't want her to fail. Laura said that they were never going to listen without them and I told her that I would make sure they wouldn't enter her room. This evening, I heard her shouting for me. We were all in the living room. Her father explained what was going on. Laura said that she was making Kyle tea when he did he's not allowed to do. She said that she was going to tell on them and he said that if she promises to not tell, he and Ryan will never go into her room again. She didn't say anything, so they ran upstairs to her room. I told her that she has no right to complain since she always sleeps in Kyle's room after school. Her brothers all agree and Laura calls all of us the worst, none of us are allowed in her room, and leaves. She comes back after a minute and says that she only sleeps in Kyle's room because he never uses it aside from sleeping at night, and if he was to use it for studying, then she would never go there. Meanwhile, they constantly disturb her, mess with her stuff, and made her unable to sleep just last night. I told her if they ever go into her room, she needs to go to me. Then Kyle starts saying that they had the right to go into her room while she was trying to sleep because they were playing. Laura yelled at him, then said that she couldn't wait to move out soon so she no longer has to deal with them. She also called me an awful mother for not giving her bedroom locks. The top comment is, yes, you are the a-hole, and not a very caring mom. Obviously your sons are the favorite and your daughter is just expected to deal with their lack of boundaries and bad behavior. Is she your stepdaughter by any chance? Because it sounds like how you are treating her. Your daughter is 17 and will be legally allowed to leave home very soon, and you and your husband's attitudes is telling her that you don't care. Your boys are 12 and 9, old enough to know right from wrong and respect privacy boundaries. If they don't, that is on you. They should have consequences to their actions and misbehavior. But it doesn't sound like there is, at least for the boys. You make excuses for their behavior, don't really listen to your daughter, and expect her to wait around until they mature. Tell me, how old was your daughter when you taught her boundaries and about privacy? I'm betting younger than 10. For the short time your daughter is still with you, I suggest you allow her locks on the door and tell the boys that if they pound on the door, disturb her when she is sleeping, etc., that there will be punishments involved. A 17-year-old girl should have some privacy from her little brothers, and they shouldn't be allowed to run rampant through her room and use it as a playroom. Don't be surprised if your relationship continues to deteriorate as time goes on, because you and your husband treat her like her feelings don't matter, and by extension she doesn't, only the boys matter. She sees it. She feels it. She will eventually go LC or NC with you because of the hurts you have inflicted on her. This is so much more than a lock on a bedroom door. I am sad you can't see that. Do better while you have the chance. You're running out of time. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay half of my friend's wife's meals anymore? I 28M have two friends, D27F and Tommy 29M. We've known each other since middle school and make a point to make time to keep in touch and eat out at least once a month, but often twice. We live a 40-minute drive apart, but it's worth it to keep the friendship alive. This died down during the pandemic, but we're back at it semi-regularly again. I am single, aromantic. They've never made me feel like a third wheel. This isn't a date I'm invading, it's decompression time for friends to have a nice meal and maybe a few drinks. After the pandemic, Dee never went back to working, they both seem to be okay with this, and she enjoys the housemaking life. That's their thing, not my problem. The problem is that when the bill comes, Tommy asks for it to be split 2 ways, or it will just be split that way because only 2 of us walked up to the pay counter. First few times I shrugged it off. Half of her meal comes to less than $7, and I usually have a singular beer while they have soda, so my portion is probably $2 to $3 higher anyways. It all came to a head this weekend when we went to a nicer place that just opened in the area. At $50-ish a head, I couldn't help but speak up when he tried to tell the waitress to split the bill 2 ways. I did the math at the table, and just what I had came up to $67, a third of the total bill was $71. I told him I'd either pay a third even though it's more than my portion, or just go Dutch. I didn't care either way since it was close. He was absolutely appalled, told me it was embarrassing that I had done all this in front of Dee knowing that she wasn't working, and made a snide remark about how I make more than him anyways. To his snide remark I said something I maybe shouldn't have, about the fact that I'm not the one who married her, so why should I subsidize her unless she's coming home with me half the time. I paid my portion and left. Now he's texting me incessantly about how I embarrassed the fuck out of him in front of his wife, and I should have been a man about the situation and split the bill between the men like is proper to do. The more I think back, the more I realize this has happened since college too. He and I would split the cost for pizza and she would come eat too. You can call me TA for what I said, I'll accept that, but am I the a-hole for settling the bill in front of her? She's known me just as long as he has. Maybe I should have just paid it then and settled it later. The top comment is, not the a-hole. They come to the restaurant as a family unit and should therefore be paying for themselves as a family unit. Not to mention that Dee is opting not to work and isn't unemployed out of necessity. Am I the a-hole for kicking out / uninviting a guy that gave me the silent treatment in my own home? I'm part of a large friends group, late 20s to early 30s. The majority of the time, we hang out at my place, the launch pad. My place was chosen because I have a pool, an apartment pool. I'm not that fancy, it's pretty central, and it has the biggest kitchen, so it's where we usually decide to do the group's cooking. I would say that usually 8 to 12 people come to most things, and the core group is maybe like 20 of us? All dating back to college. There are a few people in the group I don't get along that well with, but whatever, they're part of the group. I still invite them. However, last night, Saturday night, something weird happened. One of the people who doesn't like me much, Jordan, was acting like a space case and wasn't responding to anything I said. It actually led to him burning the group's nachos because he ignored my directions to take them out of the oven. The fire alarm went off and everything. I found out through another group member that Jordan decided he is not going to acknowledge my existence anymore because he doesn't like me. To be clear, Jordan and I have never had any kind of argument or fight. I asked Jordan if this was the case and he wouldn't even respond. This man had the gall to come to my home as my guest, cook food in my kitchen, nearly cause a fire, and then refuse to speak to me. I told Jordan to get out of my apartment if he wasn't willing to speak to me in my own home. Jordan, to his credit, complied and left immediately, grinning smugly like a Cheshire cat after filling my place with burnt nacho smoke. Jordan's good friend Amber, who isn't my biggest fan either, apparently, said I was being a controlling bitch and also left with him. I also booted Jordan out of the Launchpad group chat, which has sparked a serious controversy amongst my friends because it's where all the group planning for my place takes place. Anyway, it's escalated, and the group is split. Half of our friends seem to think it's fine that I removed Jordan, both IRL from my house and from the Launchpad chat, because he was at my house and refusing to even interact. The other half think that Jordan is a long-standing group member and I should just put up with him ignoring me and continue to invite him even if he doesn't like me because he's been part of the group a long time and he didn't choose my house as the home base. So I'm wondering, am I the a-hole for booting someone that won't speak to me from my own house when I'm the central hub for our friends? The top comment is, not the a-hole. Is Jordan 12? The silent treatment without explanation? F him. You don't have to put up with people who treat you like that in your own home. I get that group dynamics can be tough, but a modicum of decency towards the host shouldn't be too much to ask. If others don't like it, maybe suggest rotating meetup places? It might be nice for you to be able to relax and not host all the time.